a small town where lanterns always glow warmly and the library stays open through the night, there lives a ghost. But not one that spreads fear, rather one that brings comfort, love, and a gentle reminder that no one is ever truly alone. Let's begin.
Hello, dear listener. Before we begin tonight's story, take a deep breath in and let it out slowly. Feel your body settling down, your mind as light as a sheet of paper drifting upon a still lake. Imagine yourself walking along a narrow cobblestone street. Around you, old houses with sloping roofs, their windows glowing with a warm golden light. You hear the wind brushing gently through tall maple trees, their leaves drifting slowly to the ground, as if even time itself is letting each moment fall softly, one by one. This is Maplewood, a small town nestled among rolling green hills. People often say there is nothing remarkable about it. No towering buildings, no bustling noise. But everyone who visits remembers. Because peace lingers in every breath you take here. At the very heart of the town, right in the little square, stands a red brick building that has lasted more than a century. On its old wooden door hangs a sign engraved in silver letters, Maplewood Community Library. By day, the library is alive with voices. Children run down the halls, clutching colorful picture books. Elders sit by the windows, reading newspapers with round glasses. Workers stop by to borrow a book, stealing a moment of calm amid the busyness of their lives. But at night, when the church bell strikes 10, the library grows strangely quiet. The glow of oil lamps falls upon tall shelves that stretch to the ceiling, the faint scent of aged paper drifting in the air. You can almost feel that the place holds not only words but also memories, and the breath of generations gone by. For many years, the one who cared for this library most dearly was Thomas Whitaker. Thomas was not a man of fame or fortune, just a simple librarian. Yet for Maplewood, he was the very heart, the soul of this library. Thomas was old. His hair silver, his eyes gentle as if touched by the late sun. He wore a worn gray sweater, sat in a wooden chair at the front desk, and greeted every visitor with a soft smile. Every child who came to borrow books was given a story by him. Every adult who stopped by received from him a quiet blessing of warmth. To Thomas, books were never just paper and ink. They were doors. He often told the children, "Inside every book lies a world, and our task is to find the key to enter." Each night, after everyone had left, Thomas would walk slowly along the shelves. He carefully placed each book back in its rightful place, as though tending to his dearest friends. In the stillness, he would sometimes hum an old melody, his voice low, warm, and filled with calm. The townsfolk of Maplewood believed that the library's serenity came from Thomas himself. With him there, no one ever felt alone. But then one day, time called his name. Thomas left this world, and the town mourned deeply. The funeral was simple. Yet so many people came that the street outside the library was filled with flowers and candles. People thought that from then on, Maplewood would feel empty, that there would be no more of that gentle voice, no more of that kind smile at the library door. But they were wrong, for Thomas never truly left. He was still there, hidden in the glow of the lamps at night, in the soft rattle of the wind against the windows, in the faint scent of paper along the quiet hallways. And that was when the story truly began. The story of a friendly ghost, the unseen guardian of a little town. Close your eyes now, and imagine Maplewood once more. The streets are quiet, the lanterns glow softly, and at the very center of this little town stands the old library, its red bricks glowing like embers in the evening light. But long before Thomas Whitaker became a ghost, he was the beating heart of Maplewood itself. Everyone knew him, not because he sought attention, but because his kindness reached every corner of the town. Each morning he would unlock the heavy oak doors of the library. Children gathered around him eagerly, their eyes bright with curiosity. Thomas always had a story ready, his voice weaving pictures more vivid than any illustration. To the children, he was a magician of words. To the elders, he was a companion. And to those passing through Maplewood, he was a gentle reminder that even the simplest places can hold treasures. On rainy days, the library became a refuge. The windows blurred with raindrops, and inside, the warmth of Thomas's voice filled the rooms. He would read aloud, slowly, softly, as though each word was a candle lit against the grayness outside. And when someone felt lonely, Thomas noticed. A hand on a shoulder, a quiet word, a book carefully chosen. Small gestures, but they carried the weight of true care. He often told the townsfolk, books are not just for learning. They are for healing, when you cannot sleep, when your heart feels heavy. Let a story hold you, the way a friend would. At night, after the lamps dimmed and the library emptied, Thomas would sit by the tall window, a cup of tea in his hand. He would watch the town settle into stillness, the stars climbing into the sky above the hills. And he felt content, for his life was simple, but it was enough. Maplewood was more than his home. It was his family. And though the years grew heavy, his heart never tired of giving. The people of Maplewood came to believe something quietly, though they rarely said it aloud. As long as Thomas lived, the library would never lose its warmth, and the town would never lose its soul. Take another slow breath, dear listener. In and out. Feel the air ease your chest. Feel your body grow lighter, as if you too are walking the quiet streets of Maplewood. There came a day, gentle and heavy, when the townsfolk awoke to the news they had long feared. Thomas Whitaker, the man whose smile had lit their library for decades, the man whose voice had carried countless children into the safe world of dreams, had quietly fallen asleep and would not wake again. The town fell silent. Even the morning birds seemed to hush, as if they too sensed a presence was missing. Shops opened their doors slowly. Neighbors spoke in whispers, and the square outside the library filled with people carrying flowers in their arms. That evening, the church bells tolled. 1, 2, 3. Their deep notes rolling through the hills, marking not just the passing of a man, but the turning of a chapter in Maplewood's story. The funeral was simple, just as Thomas would have wished. The library steps were lined with candles, their flames flickering like soft breaths. Children clutched the books he had once read to them. Elders bowed their heads, remembering the friend who had always sat beside them. One by one, people stepped forward to speak. No one spoke of wealth or grand achievements. They spoke of his voice, his patience, the way he remembered every name and treated every visitor as though they mattered. And though grief hung heavy in the air, there was also warmth. For everyone knew that Thomas's life had been a gift. He had lived gently and left gently, like a candle that burned steady until the very end. When the service ended, the townsfolk lingered. No one wished to leave. The library doors were shut, the windows dark, and for the first time in years the building seemed empty. But deep inside those red brick walls, something stirred. Perhaps it was the echo of Thomas's footsteps, still pacing softly between the shelves. Perhaps it was the hush of his voice, still whispering a bedtime story. Or perhaps it was Thomas himself, choosing not to leave the place he loved most. That night, a young child swore they saw a light moving behind the library windows, though no lamp had been left burning. Another villager said they heard a faint hum, an old tune Thomas used to sing while sorting books. The people of Maplewood did not speak of ghosts with fear. They spoke of Thomas with tenderness, and slowly a belief took root, soft as falling snow. Thomas had not gone. He had simply stayed, not to frighten, but to watch, to care, to keep the library alive with the warmth he had always given. And so began the quiet legend of the friendly ghost of Maplewood, a guardian not of walls and shelves, but of hearts and memories. As you rest now, let your breath slow, let your thoughts soften, for in every gentle story, in every quiet place, there lingers a spirit of kindness that never fades. Breathe slowly, dear listener, in and out. Let your mind drift like a leaf on calm water, and follow me back to the quiet town of Maplewood. It was the night after the funeral. The library stood still beneath the silver glow of the moon. Its windows, dark and silent, looked almost like closed eyes, resting after a long, heavy day. Inside, The shelves were lined neatly, every book resting in its place. But the air carried something different. A hush, a presence, as though the walls themselves were waiting. And then, softly, gently, a figure began to form. At first it was only a shimmer of light, like the faint glimmer of stars reflected in water. Then it grew clearer, a man with kind eyes, a worn gray sweater, and a smile that seemed to carry the warmth of countless evenings past. It was Thomas Whitaker. But now, he was no longer bound by time, no longer touched by the weight of age. His steps were soundless, yet every corner of the library seemed to brighten as he moved. He touched the edge of a shelf, and the books seemed to sigh, as if welcoming him back. He paused at the reading table where children once gathered, and for a moment the faint echo of laughter filled the room. Not loud, not startling, just soft and tender, like a memory slipping gently into the present. Thomas did not feel fear, nor did he feel sorrow. Instead, there was peace. He had given his life to this library, to its people, to the stories that filled its walls. And now, in this new, quiet form, he knew his work was not finished. He walked to the tall window, looked out at the town he loved. The lanterns on the street glowed faintly, and here and there he saw the shadows of families gathered close for the night. He whispered, though no living ear could hear, "I will stay." Not to haunt, but to watch. Not to frighten, but to comfort. Outside, the wind carried his words, weaving them into the rustle of maple leaves. Somewhere, a child stirred in their sleep, and without knowing why, felt safer, warmer. As if wrapped in an unseen embrace, that night, the library no longer felt empty. Its silence was not lonely, but calm. The kind of calm that comes when you know someone is watching over you. And so began Thomas's new journey. He was no longer just the librarian. He was the gentle guardian of Maplewood, a quiet presence that lingered in every page turned, every story read, every dream carried home by those who stepped through the library's doors. As you rest now, imagine that same presence near you, a warmth without shape, a comfort without words. Let it guide you softly into deeper rest as the friendly ghost of Maplewood begins his gentle watch. Now, dear listener, let your breath find a gentle rhythm, slow and steady, like footsteps on a quiet path. With each breath, let yourself sink deeper into calm as we return once more to the town of Maplewood. It had been only a few days since Thomas Whitaker's farewell. The library, though still standing strong, seemed different to the townsfolk. Some felt hesitant to enter, as if the silence inside was too heavy, too final. But children are different. Children are guided not by fear, but by curiosity, by the pull of places they love. And so, on a soft golden afternoon, a small group of them returned. Their shoes tapped lightly on the cobblestones, their hands clutching books they had borrowed before Thomas's passing. They pushed open the old wooden doors. The hinges creaked, and the scent of aged paper floated out to greet them. For a moment, they stood still, waiting, almost expecting to hear that familiar voice. "Welcome back, my friends." But no sound came. The children exchanged glances. One of them, a little girl with bright eyes, whispered, "It feels like he's still here." They stepped inside. The sunlight through the tall windows fell in golden patches upon the floor. Dust motes drifted slowly in the air, sparkling like tiny stars. The children wandered between the shelves. At first, the silence was deep, but then something subtle began to happen. One child reached for a book, and though his hand had not yet touched it, the book slid gently forward, as if offering itself. Another child swore she heard a hum, soft and low, a tune Thomas used to sing while tidying the shelves. No one was frightened. Instead, their hearts grew warm. It was the same feeling they had always known in the library: safety, kindness, welcome. The little girl opened a storybook, and as the pages turned, the air seemed to shimmer faintly, like candlelight flickering against glass. Her lips curved into a smile. "He's reading with us," she whispered. The children gathered at the old wooden table, the very one where Thomas had once read aloud. They opened their books, their voices soft, filling the air with stories once more, and though no grown-up could have explained it, the children knew. They knew Thomas was there, not in flesh, not in voice, but in spirit, watching, listening, smiling his gentle smile. When they left that evening, their steps were light, their hearts calm, and word spread quietly among the town. The library was not empty after all. It was alive with something unseen, something tender, a friendly ghost who loved children still. As you rest tonight, imagine yourself among those children, turning the pages slowly, feeling the warmth of an unseen presence beside you. Let that comfort guide you deeper into stillness, into peace, into dreams. Take another slow breath, dear listener, in and out. Feel the stillness settling around you, like the hush of evening falling over a quiet town. Not only the children felt Thomas's presence. Soon the grown-ups of Maplewood began to notice too. Not in sudden frightening ways, but in small, gentle signs, like whispers carried on the wind. One evening, as the baker locked up his shop, he paused at the sound of humming. It was soft, steady, a melody he remembered Thomas often sang. The street was empty, but the tune drifted through the air, mingling with the rustle of maple leaves. The baker smiled, and for reasons he could not explain, his tired heart felt lighter. Another night, an old woman sat alone by her fireplace. The pages of the book she held trembled in her hands. Her eyes, weak with age, struggled to follow the lines. She whispered aloud, "If only Thomas were here to read to me again." And just then, a soft breeze slipped in through the window. The flame of her candle flickered, and she swore she heard a voice, not loud, not clear, but enough to stir her soul. A few words, familiar and kind, like Thomas reading beside her once more. Her eyes closed, and for the first time in many nights, she drifted easily into sleep. The townsfolk began to share these quiet moments. A carpenter said he felt a hand steady his when he nearly dropped a heavy beam. A young mother said her child often laughed in sleep, as though someone were telling stories only they could hear. Even the mayor admitted one evening, as lanterns lit the square, that he had felt a sudden warmth when he passed the library gates, like being greeted by an old friend. No one was afraid. No one spoke of hauntings. Instead, they whispered to each other of Thomas's spirit still walking among them, not in shadow, but in kindness, and the legend grew. People began to say that Maplewood was unlike any other town. Here, the wind carried not just the scent of trees and rain, but the gentle voice of a man who loved his people too much to leave them. Late at night, when the streets were empty and the stars shone above the hills, you could almost hear it yourself. The faintest murmur, like a lullaby for the town. A whisper in the wind, a promise that kindness never truly fades. As you rest now, let that whisper follow you too. Soft, steady, guiding you deeper into calm. May it carry you safely into dreams where warmth and peace wait, just as they do in Maplewood. Settle in, dear listener. Take a slow breath and imagine the little town of Maplewood once more. The hills are quiet, the sky is deep and blue, and 1,000 stars twinkle like tiny lanterns of their own. Every autumn, the people of Maplewood gathered for a special tradition, the Festival of Lanterns. It was a night when families filled the square with glowing lights, each lantern carrying a wish, a memory, or a prayer. That year, the festival felt different. It was the first autumn without Thomas. Some feared the night would feel incomplete, that without his steady presence, the glow of the lanterns might not be as warm. But as the evening arrived, the square came alive. Children skipped with paper lanterns in their hands, their laughter ringing like bells. Elders lit candles, their faces bathed in gentle light. The library stood at the edge of the square, its windows dark, yet somehow it seemed to watch over the gathering. When the moment came, the townsfolk raised their lanterns together. Soft flames flickered, casting golden halos on smiling faces. Slowly, one by one, the lanterns were released into the night sky. They drifted upward, like glowing stars being born, floating higher and higher until they joined the heavens above. The people whispered wishes for peace, for love, for memories that never fade. And then, something happened. A wind stirred, gentle, steady, not strong enough to harm, but enough to carry every lantern higher than it had ever risen before. The townsfolk looked up in wonder, and many swore they heard it. A low hum, a melody woven into the breeze. the very song Thomas used to sing while walking through the library halls. Children clutched their parents' hands, eyes wide with joy. Elders let tears slip quietly down their cheeks. And altogether they understood Thomas was there, not seen, not touched, but felt in every flicker of light, every note of the wind, every lantern that soared toward the stars. From that night on, the Festival of Lanterns carried new meaning. It was not only a time for wishes and prayers, but also a night to remember the friendly ghost of Maplewood, the gentle guardian who never left them. And so, year after year, as lanterns drifted skyward, the townsfolk would whisper softly, "Thank you, Thomas. As you rest now, imagine those lanterns above you, a sky filled with warm, glowing lights, each carrying love, each carrying peace. Let their glow guide you deeper, into dreams as soft as starlight, into sleep as calm as Maplewood's night. Breathe gently now, dear listener. Let the air move in and out, like the slow sway of lanterns in the evening wind. And picture Maplewood once more, resting quietly among the hills, its streets calm, its windows glowing with warmth." One autumn afternoon, a traveler arrived in town. He was a young man, weary from the road, his boots covered in dust, his eyes heavy with the weight of long journeys. He had never heard of Maplewood before. It was not on most maps, nor spoken of in bustling cities. But something had guided him there, perhaps the curve of the hills, perhaps the call of rest, perhaps something deeper. The townsfolk welcomed him, as Maplewood always welcomed strangers with smiles and gentle words. He found a small inn to sleep in, and as he sat by the fire that evening, he began to hear whispers, not whispers of gossip, but of a story. The innkeeper spoke softly, telling him about Thomas Whitaker, the old librarian who had cared for everyone. The baker joined in, sharing how he once heard Thomas's humming in the night. Even the children, sitting cross-legged on the floor, chimed in eagerly, describing how books moved as if guided by invisible hands. The traveler listened, his tired eyes growing wide with wonder. "A ghost?" he asked, but there was no fear in his voice. The townsfolk smiled. "Not a ghost to haunt," they said. "A ghost to guard, a friend who loved us too much to leave." That night, curious and drawn by the story, the traveler walked to the library. The building stood in the moonlight, its red brick silvered by the glow. He pressed a hand to the old wooden door, and though it did not open, he felt something stir, a warmth, like being welcomed home. Inside, a faint light flickered between the shelves, though no candle had been lit, and just for a moment, the traveler thought he heard footsteps, steady and calm, as if someone were walking beside him. He whispered into the quiet, "I don't know you, Thomas, but thank you." The wind brushed gently past, rustling his hair, carrying with it a soft hum, like a lullaby meant just for him. When the traveler left Maplewood the next morning, he carried more than rest. He carried a story, a memory, a feeling of peace he had not known in years. And wherever his road took him, he told others of the small town where a friendly ghost watched over all. And so the legend of Maplewood spread, not through books, not through fame, but through quiet voices, each retelling carrying with it a touch of Thomas's kindness. As you rest now, imagine yourself as that traveler, pausing for a night in a gentle town, hearing a story that softens your heart, feeling a presence that comforts your soul. May that peace travel with you too, into dreams, into sleep, into the quiet glow of night. Close your eyes for a moment, dear listener, and imagine Maplewood under the silver light of a full moon. The streets are quiet, the trees stand still, and the only sound is the soft chirping of crickets. On this night, the townsfolk gathered, drawn by whispers of something unusual. For weeks, gentle signs had appeared in the library. A candle glowing, though no one had lit it. Books neatly arranged, though no hands had touched them. The faint hum of a melody drifting through the air. So at midnight they came together. Mothers holding their children close, elders leaning on walking sticks, young ones wide-eyed with wonder. They brought lanterns, though the moonlight was bright enough to guide them. The library stood tall and silent, its windows reflecting the glow of the stars. When the heavy doors creaked open, a hush fell over the crowd. Inside, the air felt different. Not cold, not frightening, but warm, like stepping into a place where love still lingered. Rows of books stretched out, their spines glimmering faintly, as if touched by invisible hands. Then it began. A book slipped from a high shelf, landing gently on a table. Its pages opened wide as though inviting someone to read. Another followed, then another, until a small pile rested neatly, each one a story Thomas had once cherished. The children gasped, clutching their parents' arms. The elders smiled knowingly, their eyes misty with memory, and then, through the hush of midnight, came the sound. Not footsteps exactly, but the rhythm of someone moving through the aisles, steady, patient, familiar. A soft hum rose in the air. The very tune Thomas Whitaker had sung when guiding children through the world of stories. It drifted like a lullaby, wrapping around the listeners, soothing hearts and calming fears. No one ran. No one screamed, for they all knew this was not a haunting. This was a homecoming. One by one, the townsfolk closed their eyes. Some whispered thanks, some let tears fall silently, and some simply listened, breathing in the peace that filled the library. As the hour passed, the lanterns burned lower, the moon began to drift westward, and the sound slowly faded, not gone, only resting, like a friend who knew he was not forgotten. When the people of Maplewood left the library that night, they did so with lighter hearts. They carried with them a reminder that love does not end with time, and kindness leaves echoes that even silence cannot erase. And so, the legend of the friendly ghost grew stronger, woven deeper into the soul of Maplewood. Not just a story told to children, but a memory shared by all, a midnight gathering they would never forget. Now, as you lie here listening, let your mind wander those moonlit shelves. Feel the quiet presence, hear the gentle hum, and know that you too are safe, watched over by warmth, carried gently into dreams. Settle in now, dear listener. Let your breath slow, let your body grow heavy with rest, as I tell you about a letter hidden for many years, waiting patiently to be found. It happened on a quiet morning, long after the midnight gathering in the library. The air was soft with early sunlight, and the scent of autumn leaves drifted through the town. A young librarian, newly appointed, was cleaning the old wooden desk where Thomas Whitaker had once worked. The desk was worn smooth with time, its drawers filled with yellowed papers and forgotten trinkets. As she dusted carefully, her hand brushed against something hidden. A small envelope, tucked beneath a loose plank of wood. The paper was fragile, edges curled with age, the ink faded but still gentle to the eye. On the front, in neat handwriting, were the words, "To the people of Maplewood." Her heart fluttered. She opened the letter slowly, and as the words were revealed, it was as though Thomas himself was speaking once more. "My dear Maplewood, if you are reading this, then I am no longer among you in the way I once was. But know this, my love for this town does not fade with my breath. I have walked these streets, watched your children grow, shared laughter and tears among these shelves. And I could not imagine a life more full. If you ever feel my presence, do not be afraid. It is only my heart, lingering here because it has nowhere else it would rather be. Take care of one another. Read to the young, listen to the old, and let kindness be the language of Maplewood. For as long as stories are told, I will be with you, with gratitude always." Thomas Whitaker. The librarian's eyes filled with tears. She read the letter aloud to the townsfolk, and as the words echoed through the library halls, the people grew still, their hearts swelling with warmth. They realized then that Thomas had never truly left them. His spirit was not only in the gentle hums, the shifting books, or the glow of candlelight. It was in his words, his love, his wish for Maplewood to remain a place of kindness and care. From that day on, the letter was framed and placed on the library wall. Children would pause to read it, elders would smile at its memory, and travelers passing through would whisper, "Maplewood is a town watched over by love." And so the legend grew, stronger than before. Not just a ghost story, but a promise kept. A reminder that the bonds of kindness stretch far beyond a single lifetime. As you rest now, let the words of Thomas be a lullaby for your soul. You are cared for. You are not alone, and love, once given, is never truly lost. Now, dear listener, let your eyelids grow heavy. Let your thoughts drift softly as I share with you a tale of dreams, the kind that arrive gently in the night and leave warmth behind in the morning. It began after the letter was found. The children of Maplewood, who had always been curious about Thomas Whitaker, started to speak of dreams one by one. They would wake at dawn, eyes shining, and whisper to their parents, "I saw the friendly ghost last night." In their dreams, the library was alive with light. Shelves glowed as though touched by the sun, and the scent of old paper and polished wood wrapped around them like a blanket. Thomas was there, not frightening, not strange but kind, with gentle eyes and a voice as soft as falling rain. He would guide them through the aisles, his steps slow and patient, and as they walked, books would open on their own, pages fluttering as if eager to be read. He told them stories of faraway lands, of rivers that sang, of stars that whispered, of forests where time moved like a dream. Some nights, he taught them how to listen, to the hush of silence, to the rhythm of their own hearts, to the way a story can live inside you long after the words are gone. The children would laugh in their sleep, turning softly in their beds, their dreams filled with wonder. Parents would peek into their rooms, smiling at the peace on their little faces, not knowing that Thomas was there, watching over them, tucking them into dreams like a gentle caretaker. The townsfolk began to notice. School teachers spoke of children arriving with stories already on their tongues. The baker listened to little ones describe adventures they swore they had lived in the night. And though no one could prove it, all of Maplewood felt it was true. For dreams, after all, are where the heart finds what it needs most. And for these children, it was guidance, imagination, and the quiet comfort of a friend who had never truly left. As the years passed, the dreams continued. Some children grew up and left Maplewood, yet they carried the memory of those nights. The soft glow of the library, the patient voice of Thomas, the certainty that love followed them even into sleep. And whenever life felt too heavy, they would close their eyes, and the dreams would return, gentle as moonlight, steady as the hum of an old friend. So tonight, as you rest, think of those children, dreaming of stories, safe under the care of a ghost who was never a stranger. Let yourself wander, too, into a library of your own making, where shelves stretch into forever and a kind voice reads you into peace. And may your sleep be filled with the same wonder, the same comfort, and the same gentle dreams. Settle in, dear listener. Breathe softly, and imagine the town of Maplewood, bathed in the glow of 1,000 tiny lights. It was late autumn when the townsfolk decided to honor Thomas Whitaker in their own special way. The letter he left behind, the dreams of their children, and the midnight gathering at the library had woven his presence so deeply into Maplewood that they wished to give thanks. And so the Festival of Lanterns was born. On the first night of November, as twilight spread across the hills, families gathered in the town square. Children clutched paper lanterns they had painted with stars, moons, and open books. Elders held simple candles, their flames steady and warm. The baker gave out loaves sweet with honey, and the librarian placed a stack of well-loved stories in the center of the square. As darkness deepened, the mayor spoke softly. Thomas Whitaker gave us more than books. He gave us kindness, patience, and a reminder that love does not end. Tonight, we carry his light forward, and with those words, every lantern was lit. The square filled with a golden glow, flickering like a sea of stars brought down to earth. Children giggled as their lanterns swayed. Elders hummed familiar tunes, and soon the whole town began to walk, a gentle procession through Maplewood's quiet streets. They passed the bakery, where Thomas once lingered to chat. They passed the schoolyard, where he had read to children under the trees. And finally they came to the library. The old building stood tall, its bricks silvered by moonlight. The townsfolk placed their lanterns on the steps, one by one, until the library glowed brighter than it ever had before. And then, Something stirred. The doors of the library creaked open, though no one had touched them. A soft wind moved through the crowd, gentle and kind, carrying with it the faintest hum of a tune. Thomas's tune. Children stilled, their eyes wide with wonder. Parents smiled, tears shining in the glow of lantern light. And though no figure appeared, all felt the presence, steady, loving, as if Thomas himself was walking among them. Grateful for their remembrance, that night, the townsfolk lingered long after the flames burned low. Some whispered prayers of thanks. Some told stories they remembered from childhood. Others simply sat in silence, feeling the peace that filled the square. From that year on, the Festival of Lanterns became tradition. Every autumn, Maplewood gathered to honor the friendly ghost who had never truly left. And so, the light carried on, not only in lanterns, but in the kindness of neighbors, in the stories read to children, and in the gentle ways people cared for one another. As you rest now, imagine yourself walking in that lantern-lit procession. Feel the warmth of the glow, the calm of the night air, and the steady hum of a song that asks for nothing, but gives you peace. Let the light guide you, as it guided Maplewood into dreams filled with comfort, into sleep filled with love. Breathe slowly now, dear listener. Let your thoughts quiet as the season of winter settles over Maplewood. After the Festival of Lanterns, when the town had been aglow with golden light, the days grew shorter, and the first snow arrived. Maplewood in winter was unlike any other time. The hills turned white and soft. Blankets of snow rested on rooftops, and the streets grew silent, muffled beneath the hush of frost. The townsfolk walked gently, their breath rising in clouds, their laughter echoing faintly through the still air. Fires burned warmly in hearths, candles flickered in windows, and children pressed their palms to glass, watching flakes tumble from the sky. But within that silence, there was still a presence in the library. The great oak doors seemed to hum faintly, as though warmed by an unseen fire. The shelves stood patient and tall, and though no one spoke, the air carried a quiet comfort, as if Thomas himself was sitting nearby, keeping watch. On the coldest nights, when winds howled through the chimneys and snow piled high at the edges of doors, families gathered close, reading stories aloud to one another. And sometimes, just as a tale was reaching its gentlest moment, the flame of a candle would brighten, or a log in the fire would spark softly, as though someone else were listening too. Children would whisper, "It's him. He's here." And parents, smiling tenderly, would nod. The silence of winter did not feel empty in Maplewood. It felt full, with memory, with kindness, with the steady heartbeat of a town that knew it was cared for. The snow itself seemed to carry Thomas's presence. Footprints sometimes appeared near the library steps, though no one had walked there. A path of clear ground stretched across the square, as if someone had brushed the snow away to guide children safely home. And on one especially quiet night, when the moon shone silver over the frozen river, a few townsfolk swore they heard it, the faint hum of a lullaby, drifting across the snow, so soft it might have been the wind, yet warm enough to reach their hearts. Winter in Maplewood became a season of reflection, of gentle peace, of stories told by firelight, and of the comforting thought that even in the coldest silence, they were never truly alone. So now, as you listen, imagine yourself walking through that snow-blanketed town. Feel the stillness of the air, the crunch of frost beneath your feet, and the warmth that seems to follow you like an unseen friend. Let that warmth carry you through the silence, through the night, into dreams as soft as falling snow. Rest easy now, dear listener. Breathe as gently as the first winds of spring, and let your mind drift to Maplewood, where the snow is melting, and new life begins to bloom. After the long, silent winter, the town awoke to color once more. Crocuses pushed through soft earth, the river sang with melting ice, and the air carried the scent of rain and blossoms. The children of Maplewood, still warmed by their winter dreams, began to gather in the library once again. They sat on the old wooden floor, their cheeks flushed with sunlight, their voices alive with imagination. But this time, they did not only listen to stories. They began to tell their own. A little boy spoke of a dragon who guarded a hidden garden of flowers. A young girl told of a bird who carried messages between the stars. Others invented tales of laughter, adventure, and kindness that stretched across the world. The new librarian listened with quiet joy, writing their words down, binding them into small books with covers painted by eager hands. The shelves began to fill, not only with the old stories Thomas had loved, but with new ones, fresh voices, bright imagination, a continuation of the gift he had left behind. And sometimes, as a child finished reading, a page would turn on its own, or a candle would flicker warmly, as if Thomas himself were nodding in approval. The townsfolk noticed. They said, "Thomas is happy. He is glad the children are writing." Soon, each spring, Maplewood held a small gathering, not as grand as the Festival of Lanterns, but gentle and sweet. Children read aloud the tales they had created, their voices carrying into the soft evening air, their words planting seeds of wonder that would bloom for years to come. And though Thomas's voice was no longer heard directly, his influence flowed through every sentence, every dream, every new story born in Maplewood, for that is the way of kindness. It does not end. It grows, it multiplies, and it finds its way into the hearts of those who are ready to listen. So as you rest now, imagine yourself seated in that sunlit library, listening to a child read a story for the first time. Feel the hope in their voice, the warmth in the room, and the quiet joy of knowing that stories never truly end. And may that thought carry you gently, like a spring breeze, into peaceful dreams of your own. Breathe gently now, dear listener. Let the rhythm of your breath match the quiet steps of a traveler approaching a small town. Let me tell you of a visitor who came to Maplewood one spring and found more than rest. He was a writer, a man who had traveled through many cities, always searching for stories. Yet in the noise of the world he had grown weary. His words felt heavy, his imagination dimmed. One evening, while wandering the countryside, he followed a narrow path that wound through the hills. It led him, quite unexpectedly, to Maplewood. The town welcomed him, as it welcomed all, with gentle smiles and open hearts. He stayed at the inn, where the fire burned low and the scent of bread lingered in the air. There he began to hear the whispers. The innkeeper spoke softly of Thomas Whitaker. Children laughed as they described their dreams. Elders nodded, recalling nights in the library when books seemed to move on their own. The visitor listened, his heart stirring with curiosity. Could it be true? A ghost not to frighten, but to comfort? A spirit who lingered out of love? That night, unable to resist, he walked to the library. The moon shone silver on the bricks, the lanterns from the festival still hanging in the square. When he stepped inside, the air wrapped around him like a blanket. The shelves stood tall and patient. The floor creaked beneath his feet. And somewhere, faint but steady, he heard a hum, the soft tune of a lullaby. The visitor closed his eyes. For the first time in years, his mind grew still. And into that stillness, new words began to form. The next morning, he wrote with a hand lighter than it had ever been. He filled pages with tales of kindness, of lanterns glowing in the night, of children dreaming in a library watched over by love. Before he left Maplewood, he placed a small notebook on the library desk. On its first page he wrote, "To Thomas and to the people of Maplewood, thank you for reminding me that stories live not only in books, but in hearts." The librarian smiled when she found it and placed the notebook on the shelves. It became part of the collection, a gift from afar, proof that Thomas's presence reached beyond the town. And so, the legend spread once more, not through whispers this time, but through written words, carried by a traveler who had come seeking stories and left with peace. As you rest now, imagine yourself as that visitor, arriving weary, finding kindness, and leaving lighter than before. May your heart, too, be filled with gentle stories tonight, guiding you softly into dreams. Settle in now, dear listener, and let your breath fall slow and steady, as if the world itself has paused for you. Tonight I will tell you about a hidden place, a room long forgotten yet filled with gentle secrets. It happened one rainy afternoon. The library windows blurred with silver drops. The fire in the hearth burned low. and the scent of damp pages filled the air. A young boy named Samuel, curious and always wandering, was tracing his fingers along the shelves. He loved to count the books, to feel the worn spines beneath his hands. But on that day, his hand pressed against the back of a shelf, and something gave way. A soft click, a sound like the whisper of a lock unfastening. The shelf trembled, and slowly, almost shyly, it swung open. Behind it lay a narrow doorway, dark and quiet. Samuel gasped, but his fear was small, overcome by wonder. He called the librarian, and together they stepped inside. The air in the hidden room was cool and still. Dust floated like starlight in the dim glow, and all around them, lined against the walls, were shelves of journals, notebooks, and letters. On a small desk rested a lantern, long extinguished but waiting. Beside it lay a book of poems, written in a hand both elegant and kind. The name on the first page, Thomas Whitaker. The librarian placed a trembling hand on her heart. "This must have been his private study," she whispered. The townspeople gathered, each one stepping softly, as though afraid to disturb the air. They found stories Thomas had never published, poems written in the quiet of night, letters of encouragement addressed to children he once taught. It was as if the room had been waiting, all these years, to be discovered, to remind Maplewood that Thomas's love had always lingered. That evening, the librarian carefully arranged the writings on a table in the main hall. Lanterns flickered. Children leaned close to read the words, and in the hush that followed, many swore they felt a warm presence beside them, a soft hand resting gently on their shoulder. From then on, the hidden study was no longer secret. It became a place of quiet reflection, where townsfolk would enter not to disturb the past, but to honor it. And though the room was silent, its silence was comforting. For in those walls and in those pages, Thomas's voice still lived, gentle, guiding, eternal. So, as you close your eyes tonight, imagine walking through that hidden door. Let the quiet wrap around you. Let the words on the shelves glow softly, and let your dreams be guided by the kindness of a spirit who never truly left. Settle in now, dear listener, and let your breath fall slow and steady, as if the world itself has paused for you. Tonight I will tell you about a hidden place, a room long forgotten, yet filled with gentle secrets. It happened one rainy afternoon. The library windows blurred with silver drops, the fire in the hearth burned low, and the scent of damp pages filled the air. A young boy named Samuel, curious and always wandering, was tracing his fingers along the shelves. He loved to count the books, to feel the worn spines beneath his hands. But on that day, his hand pressed against the back of a shelf, and something gave way. A soft click, a sound like the whisper of a lock unfastening. The shelf trembled, and slowly, almost shyly, it swung open. Behind it lay a narrow doorway, dark and quiet. Samuel gasped, but his fear was small, overcome by wonder. He called the librarian, and together they stepped inside. The air in the hidden room was cool and still. Dust floated like starlight in the dim glow, and all around them, lined against the walls, were shelves of journals, notebooks, and letters. On a small desk rested a lantern, long extinguished but waiting. Beside it lay a book of poems written in a hand both elegant and kind. The name on the first page, Thomas Whitaker. The librarian placed a trembling hand on her heart. "This must have been his private study," she whispered. The townspeople gathered, each one stepping softly, as though afraid to disturb the air. They found stories Thomas had never published, poems written in the quiet of night, letters of encouragement addressed to children he once taught. It was as if the room had been waiting, all these years, to be discovered, to remind Maplewood that Thomas's love had always lingered. That evening, the librarian carefully arranged the writings on a table in the main hall. Lanterns flickered. Children leaned close to read the words, and in the hush that followed, many swore they felt a warm presence beside them, a soft hand resting gently on their shoulder. From then on, the hidden study was no longer secret. It became a place of quiet reflection, where townsfolk would enter not to disturb the past, but to honor it. And though the room was silent, its silence was comforting. For in those walls and in those pages, Thomas's voice still lived, gentle, guiding, eternal. So, as you close your eyes tonight, imagine walking through that hidden door. Let the quiet wrap around you. Let the words on the shelves glow softly, and let your dreams be guided by the kindness of a spirit who never truly left. Close your eyes, dear listener, and let your mind drift gently as lanterns begin to glow in the twilight. For tonight I will tell you of a celebration, a festival born not from sorrow, but from love and remembrance. It was the mayor of Maplewood who first suggested it. After the hidden room was found, the townspeople felt Thomas closer than ever. They wanted a way to honor him, to let his memory shine, just as his kindness had once lit their lives. And so, each autumn, when the air turned crisp and the leaves painted the town in gold, they began the Festival of Light. On the evening of the festival, the townsfolk gathered in the square. Every window glowed with candles, every doorway framed with lanterns. The streets shimmered as if stars had descended to rest upon the cobblestones. Children carried paper lanterns, painted with dreams and wishes. Some bore drawings of books, others of stars, and some, quite simply, of a smiling figure in a coat and hat, their way of remembering Thomas. The librarian stood at the steps of the library, holding a lantern carved with gentle patterns. When she lifted it, the crowd fell silent. "We light these lanterns," she said softly, "not to chase away darkness, but to remind us that kindness shines brightest when shared." One by one, lanterns were raised. Their glow warmed the night. The river that wound through Maplewood mirrored the light, so that it seemed the town floated between two skies, one above and one below. And though no one spoke of it loudly, many felt a presence among them. A soft brush of air, a warmth near their shoulder, a sense that Thomas walked quietly through the festival he had inspired. As the bells tolled midnight, the children gathered by the library steps. Together they whispered a good night, and one by one they placed their lanterns on the river. The lanterns drifted downstream, like glowing dreams carried into forever, and Maplewood, bathed in light, rested peacefully. From that year onward, the Festival of Light became tradition. It was not a time of sadness, but of joy, for it reminded the town that even those who leave the world may still remain, in stories, in love, in light. So now, as you rest, picture yourself standing in that glowing square. Feel the lantern's warmth in your hands. Watch as it rises, as it drifts, as it joins the gentle glow of countless others. And know, dear dreamer, that your light too will always shine. Settle softly now, dear listener. Let the hush of the night wrap around you, and hear, if only in your imagination, the faintest strains of music drifting on the breeze. For Maplewood, after the Festival of Light, found yet another wonder. A gift that seemed to come not from instruments, but from the spirit of Thomas himself. It began on a quiet winter's night. Snow had just started to fall, soft flakes resting like feathers on rooftops. The town was still, the streets hushed beneath a blanket of white. Then, faintly, almost like a dream, someone heard a melody. Not from any house, not from any violin or piano, but from the very air itself. It was a lullaby. The same gentle tune Thomas had once hummed to children as they drifted into sleep during story time at the library. The sound floated through the square, weaving between the lantern posts, settling over the library steps. It was tender, steady, and impossibly kind. Families opened their windows. Children pressed their cheeks to the glass, and instead of fear, their hearts filled with warmth. For the music carried no sorrow, only love, a reminder that Maplewood was never alone. From then on nights of deep stillness, the melody would return, sometimes in winter, sometimes in the quiet days of spring, sometimes just after the Festival of Light. No one could explain it. But no one wished to, for they believed it was Thomas, walking unseen among them, leaving a gift of song to those he cherished. Elders sat back in their chairs, letting the tune cradle them like the embrace of an old friend. Children fell asleep faster on those nights, dreaming of lanterns, libraries, and a kindly ghost who hummed them safe into slumber. And in the heart of the town, where the library stood proud, The melody always seemed strongest, as if its walls themselves remembered the voice of the man who had loved it so dearly. So, dear dreamer, as you rest now, imagine hearing that music soft and far away, a lullaby carried on the night air. Let it drift around you, let it carry you gently, and may you fall into dreams as peaceful as Maplewood beneath its song. Close your eyes now, dear listener, for this is the final chapter, a gentle ending to a story woven with light, music, and dreams. Let me tell you of the promise that bound Thomas to Maplewood forever. It came one quiet spring evening. The festival lanterns had long been extinguished. The snow of winter had melted into streams, and the library windows were open to let in the fragrance of blossoms. The librarian, sitting at her desk, found a letter she had never seen before. It was tucked inside an old book of poems, its paper yellowed, its ink soft with age. Her hands trembled as she unfolded it. The words, though simple, seemed to glow on the page. To those I leave behind, know that I will never truly go. Where there are stories, I will be. Where there is kindness, I will remain. If you keep the light of love alive, you will find me in every lantern, in every song, and in every dream. This is my promise, eternal and true. Tears filled her eyes, but they were not tears of sorrow. For the letter was not a farewell. It was a promise. When the townsfolk gathered to hear the words, a hush fell over Maplewood. Children clutched their lanterns, elders bowed their heads, and all felt the same warmth in their hearts, a certainty that Thomas was still with them. From that day forward, no one doubted. The music in the air, the dreams shared at night, the gentle presence in the library, all of it was his promise kept. Years passed, and generations came and went. But the promise endured. The Festival of Light continued. The library remained a place of comfort, and children still drifted to sleep with the feeling that a kind voice was watching over them. And so Maplewood never truly lost Thomas. For he lived not in shadows, but in light, in every smile, in every story, in every quiet kindness shared among the people. Now, dear dreamer, as you drift into rest, carry this promise with you, that love once given never fades, that kindness once shared never ends, and that somewhere in the hush of night a gentle spirit whispers, "You are safe. You are loved always." Rest now, dear listener, for you have walked with me through the streets of Maplewood, beneath lanterns glowing beside the quiet river, and within the warm walls of the library. You have met Thomas Whitaker, a man who loved stories, a spirit who chose not to haunt, but to comfort. Through whispers, through music, through dreams and promises, he became more than a ghost. He became a friend. You have seen the hidden room where poems still breathe softly. You have felt the festival of light, where lanterns float like stars. You have heard the lullabies in the air and shared the dreams that bound a whole town together. And finally, you have heard his promise, that kindness never dies, that love endures, that even in silence, we are never alone. So now, as your eyes grow heavy, carry Maplewood within you. Carry its lanterns, its laughter, its music, its peace. For the story of the friendly ghost is not only Maplewood's, it is yours too. And whenever you need comfort, close your eyes, listen to the hush of the night, and you may hear a gentle voice whispering, "You are safe. You are loved. Good night."